We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hello, this is Teka Lark-Fleming, and this is MPC presents the Black Grrrl Show for, what date is it? Oh, it's March 28th. Yes. One day I'm going to actually remember the date. But we have some great guests today. We have Bob and Amy, but we're going to start off with breaking the table, as we always do. And this one's kind of a more happy story. This one is called Everyone's Story is Valuable. I showcase stories about the arts, about creativity, about ideas. I don't broadcast press releases. Your story is valuable. This show is for people who care about the arts and the community. This show is for people who have invested their time, sweat, money into their passions. This show is for people who provide service, art, poetry, and art is service. You know, a lot of times people say art's not service, that you need to tie it into some kind of children's project or elderly project. You don't have to do that. Art just by itself is service. I want to know about your art project. I want to know about the battles you fought to create your art projects. This show is a community show, but the community isn't just politicians. It's not just people who want to be politicians. It's not to promote me. It's not to promote politicians or people who are in the part of the nonprofit industrial complex. I know a lot of shows, you see them, and then you'll have like a person who's on the air and they pretend like they care about you and they ask to vote. That person will never be on my show. I will never have a politician on my show. This is for the arts, and the arts is important. Poetry is important. I want to know about your small presses, your art galleries, your ideas. I'm open to old and new people. The only requirement is that you care about people and you want your art to move the universe and that you believe that it can. This show is to tell the story of the America that corporate America tells you doesn't exist anymore. I am here to show them, and we're all here to show them, that we're still here, that poetry, art, and writing does matter, even if it doesn't make money. So, but doesn't not always not make money? We shouldn't put that out in the universe. So this is Teka Lark-Fleming, and you can always watch us every Saturday at 3 p.m. at LA Talk Live, at the blackgrrlshow.com, at Radio 365, where's that? Stitcher Radio and Ustream TV. So when we get back, we will be talking to our guest, Bob Bryan, a great filmmaker who has been in the scene for a very long time. So we will see you in a bit. Hello, I am back, and that was that's the Bags, Alice Bags. She's out of East Los Angeles. I love featuring old and new Los Angeles musicians. So if you're a musician, please send me your CDs, actually not your CDs, like people don't make those anymore, MP3s, SoundClouds, and we'll get them on the air because we are ASPAC licensed, or ASPAC, I'm not sure that's the right name, but you know, if you're part of the music scene, you already know what that is. All right. So now we have Bob. By being persistent and accepting the goodwill of strangers, Bob managed to break into the business. Initially an actor, turned cameraman, turned director, turned producer. Some of his freelance production credits include Hill Street Blues, Hard Copy, Murphy Brown, Murder One, the U.S. World Cup, Up Close and Personal, Mad City, Deep Impact, The Truman Show, The Goofy Show, 59, Industrial Sports for the Discovery and Health Channel. The next creative step in Bob's eclectic career was to get his 45 minutes indie documentary entitled Graffiti Verte produced. Looking realistically at his modest budget, he decided to hire himself as a writer, executive producer, director of photography, audio mixer, and finally editor and publicist. I think we've read enough of Bob's bio because Bob is here and Bob can tell us all about himself.
No, I can't.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
I don't even recognize that person that was you just reading the press release. I don't even know who he is.
You don't know who he is?
I have no idea. It seems like...
Well, you're filming other people, so maybe that's why.
Probably, but beyond that, I just don't. I don't focus on me, but I understand the journey, and seriously speaking, I mean, I guess that was me, but I don't remember.
You don't remember?
No.
Well, I like to ask a kind of a fun question before we start.
Cool.
Okay, what's your favorite bar?
A higher one. I always try to go to a higher bar.
Yeah.
So the one that I'm trying to achieve right now, the next bar higher than where I am is the next film that I'm doing.
I meant like a drinking bar.
No, I know what you meant, but I decided to interpolate it the way I wanted to. Because once you ask me a question, it belongs to me.
Oh, that is true. So you don't have a favorite bar?
I don't do bars.
Oh, you don't?
Not those kind of bars.
What? Oh, you don't do. So you're gonna tell me about your other bar?
Yeah, the
bar, the height
aspirations,
of your aspirations,
dreams, realization, potentialities. Those are the bars that I go after.
Well, that's not a fun answer.
It is for me. It's also the truth.
Okay, all right. So what does Graffiti Verte? What does that mean? I mean, I see it everywhere, GV1, GV2, GV3. What does that mean?
It means that those are the different productions that I'm involved in. I branded it Graffiti Verite, or short GV.
Okay.
But Graffiti Verite itself means the truth about verite. Means the truth about graffiti.
Okay.
So initially when I did the first one, Graffiti Verite, Read the Writing on the Wall, the first documentary, I wanted to explore what was behind the scenes going on with the graffiti art movement from the voices of the creators, as opposed to those who think they knew what it was about or didn't like it or whatever. So this was going to be a documentary about graffiti art from the mouths of the creators. And that's how we started out with Graffiti Verite. And then it began that graffiti was more metaphor. It was more a collage of things that are going on thrown up against the creative wall. So it involved roller derby or poetry or whatever. So it's evolved.
Oh, so it's just like anything that's kind of like outside the corporate or accepted of what you can and cannot do, kind of like breaking boundaries.
No, it has to do with what I'm interested in.
Okay. So
totally.
So that's all it has to do with is what you're interested in.
Yeah, because I have to be passionate.
Yeah.
And the only way I could be passionate is have an interest in it.
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes sense. You know that Cam is having a graffiti show.
Actually, it's not a graffiti show. What they're doing is they're using graffiti artists who are painting in acrylic on the walls.
Yes.
So there is a graffiti aesthetic, yes.
Yeah. So, we're calling it that. We're calling it flash tag. Isn't tagging what graffiti is? Or is that not the same thing?
Well, it's different. Tagging is when you put your name up.
Yes.
Okay, solely a name. But graffiti art is involved with pieces or murals.
Okay.
So tagging and graffiti art are really part of the same movement, but they're different things.
Oh, so you're saying that show is named
I'm not
strangely?
saying anything because they didn't invite me. I'm not shooting it. I know most of the artists who are involved in it, but I'm just saying by definition, what they're doing is not tagging. Usually tagging is associated with illegal activities, right? You're tagging, you just throw up your name. And this is, I think, more elaborate than that. Because one of the artists I know who just recently was ill, his name is Pedro, PJ.
Yes.
Is a fantastic tattoo artist, a fantastic artist. He was supposed to be one of the artists until he got sick. Well, he's not a tagger.
No.
A who's curating the whole event is not a tagger.
Yeah.
He's an artist who works in various mediums. So it's kind of disingenuous to call it tagging, but, it's not my show. and it will be wonderful because they have a lot of artists who are going to do some fantastic stuff working in acrylics.
No, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a fantastic show, like a Dawes on there, and somebody named Seven Is there? I mean, there are a lot of people who are kind of part of that show, but thanks for that extra little bit of
it's just me.
Information.
Yeah.
No. I've been hearing a lot of things about that show, so I'm excited.
But it's all good.
Yeah, it's good. I haven't heard anything bad. I'm just saying. Okay, so how did you get into filmmaking?
How did I get into filmmaking? I was born a filmmaker because one of my earliest memories is taking a glass and turning it upside down and putting pictures underneath the glass and noticing that I could magnify the images and I could do various effects. So as a visual person, but I know what you're really asking me. How did I get into filmmaking? Okay, in the beginning, there were shadows. And I noticed that if you look at shadows, that they're a different kind of species. They're a different kind of entity. And I've discovered that when people are not looking at the shadows do different things. But they mimic, when you're looking at them, they do exactly what you do, you know. But when you're not looking at them, shadows have their own life. So my first film was about the shadow life. I was going to Columbia, I think, Columbia University. And who knows? But I think I was going to Columbia, and my first short was about shadows, to let people know that there's another life going on, another kind of system going on outside of our purview.
No, that's a really kind of a very deep way of looking at it, because that's kind of what you do. You're kind of showing the different parts of the city or the arts that people don't typically see. And so that's very...
Well, what I like to do is show people aspects of reality that are there that they don't seem to like be conscious of, aware. For instance, when I talk, and I do talk to people, you know, in these documentaries, I usually ask them questions and orientations in a way, and questions that people would never think of, as if that's not a factor, but they are factors more indigenous to who they really are than just a. So when did you start, you know, your career as a painter?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's really?
Yeah.
Is that what you want to ask me?
Yeah.
You know, or Wanda Coleman.
Yeah.
One thing that she was fascinated about is I asked her, so how do you think?
Yeah.
You know, what's your process of thinking? How do you process reality?
Yeah.
And she was like, nobody's ever asked me that before.
Yeah,
I said, well, you're talking to me.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you're not from Los Angeles, correct?
Oh, you can feel that?
Nah, yeah, a little bit. So where are you from?
Well, where am I from? But you really mean like the place?
Yeah,
because I could take you to where
well,
I'm from, but
are you
I don't
from
think
bars or something, or what?
Yes, and beyond.
Okay.
But the physical place that I hearkened from before I came to L.A. was New York, the Bronx.
Oh, okay.
Brooklyn.
So I mean, how do you feel about Los Angeles? Do you feel that
I love L.A.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't feel like we're like shallow and stupid?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
But there's shallow and stupid people all over in New York as well. So I mean, welcome to humanity.
Yeah.
But the fact is, no, I don't breed those kind of stereotypes. What I realize is that sometimes Los Angelinos kind of believe their own hype, and they become themselves based upon what the stereotype or the ideology or the view of it is, and they become that, and they believe that, and they become that.
Yeah.
But everybody that I talk to is extraordinary, you know, and I've seen everything that everybody else does. And says, why did they ask him that question? Why don't they consider, you know, the other dimensionalities which exist? And for some reason, most people don't even think about it, you know, or they don't even know that exists. I know it exists, so I'm going to focus on it.
Okay. Well, what do you know exists exactly?
There are infinite amount of realities. That much I do know.
Okay. I know that you know, Wanda is an LA person. She's like, you're very kind of involved. You were very involved with Wanda Coleman when she was here, you know.
She still is. Wanda lives.
Yeah, she Wanda lives, but you knew her when she was
alive
on this planet.
Because it would have been a heck of an interview if I'd have gotten on the other side.
Yeah, well, we don't know that could still happen.
Well, you just never know. I'm
know.
channeling Wanda all the time.
Yeah. I mean, but how did you meet Wanda?
I was doing a documentary on LA poets, and I think there was 24 poets, LA poets, and I knew nobody. And then I met one person, and one person said, that was fabulous. You should talk to this next person. And I talked to the next person, and then when, you know, kind of dominoed out, and ultimately says, if you're going to do something about LA poets, you got to talk to Wanda. And I said, oh, the myth, the legend. I said, I'd love to, but I don't know her. And they hooked me up. And when you watch the documentary GV21, the Wanda Coleman Project, Genius, period, that's the very first time that I met her. So what you see experienced in that film is the first time that I met her, and our relationship and rapport and bonding happens. And in that particular documentary, I didn't cut out anything because I wanted the audience to really see and breathe every moment.
And I want to know, in regards to Wanda, you know, she didn't really get her acclaim when she was alive. I mean, why do you think that was? Why do you think people didn't? I mean, I know a lot of people who are spoken word artists kind of copy her style. Well, they attempt to. I really have not met a person that actually is like Wanda.
Correct.
But I find it kind of challenging that she did not. Why do you think that she did not kind of get embraced by not only the literary part of poetry, but also in the Black community? She doesn't think she was that embraced. So why do you think that was?
I don't know if that's what you say is true, because Wanda has won a ton of awards and recognition. Matter of fact, in terms of Book of the Year, she Henry Miller and her. I mean, she won the bronze award for the Book of the Year, and she's won any number of awards. Now, Wanda was a very ambitious person, so she was living large in her own being. So she knew how great she was, or potential for greatness, and she knew what everybody else in the field was doing, and she said, well, I'm better than that, and look what they got, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so because she was always being real, and because she was channeling a lot of different voices and a lot of different realities, some of the voices that she was channeling in her work were anti-establishment, or they were they didn't really want to hear the voice of these downtrodden people, you know, these Black people. They didn't want to hear the voices of this prostitute. They didn't want to hear the voices of these people living in the projects. And she would channel and write about them from their point of view, and it was shocking. And it was angry sometimes, you know, because, you know, people are po, they have a tendency to be like, why am I po? And be angry at the fact that they po. So when she would channel them, you know, some of that anger, you know, because she was always about truth, would come out. And some people didn't want to hear that, you know. So rising in the literary world sometimes was a little difficult because the petite society didn't want to hear it.
Well, why did it seem like to me that even in the Black, like, literary society, they didn't like her either?
Yeah, see,
spoken word thing, she kind of created that, but yet they seem like they didn't want to give her credit. Like, now that she's passed away, everybody's kind of jumping on the band.
Let's name a library after her and all that. Put that out there. Human nature. Okay? When you're great, you would think that you're going to get love, right? But oftentimes, because of human fallacies, failings like jealousy, people don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
And in certain communities, she was like, she's already won all these awards, and she's already got 13 books, and she's already celebrated. I mean, why do I have to celebrate her? And sometimes we don't want to recognize ourselves in the work. We want to say, well, she did that for white people. She didn't do that for Black people. Well, what do you mean? Was it an accurate description of reality? Yeah. Well, what's the problem? Well, I don't know. Certain people are in denial and they don't want to hear it, don't want to see it. So I don't know what's into the psychology of the individuals that you're referring to who happen to be Black. But in the Black community, she was also very loved and beloved. But poets have a culture.
Yes.
There's a culture. And within the poetry community, she was loved. Now, there was a particular point in which the general public became aware of her because of a review she did.
Yeah, Maya Angelou.
With Maya Angelou, and they were like, why do you put her down? Because the review, she was like saying, what? Right?
Yeah.
And so that a lot of people got really angry at her for that.
Yeah.
So it's like, if we're going to be PC, then okay, I'll give you a PC review. But if you want my real opinion, watch out.
I guess
she was always about watch out.
Yeah, exactly. I guess what I was just saying, when I was in, I was part of the whole poetry community, and when I was in, Leimert Park area, different locations, I just felt like she wasn't getting that much love while she was alive. To me, I just felt like, but also too, we have that kind of division within the Black community where you have the West Side, the Black West Side and the Black East Side. So it's kind of like the West Side has money and access, and then the Black East Side has poetry and art. And so you kind of like, oh, so people can be Wanda Coleman-like if they have the right credentials. Like, she was one of the few spoken word poets that I knew that actually was from Watts. She would write about being from Watts.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to a lot of spoken word events, and people will be from Ladera, Baldwin Hills, Leimert Park, and they'll be reading these poetries about poverty, and they're nowhere near poor.
Yeah.
So I mean,
what was that again? What did you say?
No, yeah, but
it didn't strike me right here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it struck me up here.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, why do you think? I mean, maybe that you don't know the question, but why do you think, like, in the literary community, especially in the Black community, you have to kind of have like this certain kind of pedigree in order for you to be accepting? Either you have to have a pedigree or be dead.
Or be Poe and unrecognized. I don't know. Actually, I do know, but I don't know why these people are what they are or why they are what they are. But I'm sure they don't know who they are either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because what is good is good.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't matter, right? But there's all this politics, and there's only a couple of people who are allowed up at top, and so everybody's scrambling for that position. So, I don't know. Okay. I don't get out much, so I don't really,
So, I mean, tell us more about, a little bit more about the project, that you're doing. I know that you're going to debut it on April 26th, correct?
Which project are you talking about?
The documentary.
On
Wanda Coleman.
Oh, that one.
Yes. That's why we're here, right?
Oh, is that right? I thought you were here for me.
Yeah, well, we're here for both. We're here for both.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
The name of the documentary is GV21.
Yeah.
The Wanda Coleman Project.
And it actually was going through
Genius.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
Is going to be featured at the Art Walk.
Okay.
It's actually dedicated to her, the Art Walk, on April 26th at the Vision Theater. And it will be a screening of it. And then after the screening, and it's an 80-minute screening, there will be a 1-hour spoken word presentation with young, old, established. We got Luis Rodriguez, the current poet laureate of Los Angeles. He's going to be there, and a number of other fabulous young and old poets for an hour. And it's going to be all dedicated to the spirit of Wanda Coleman. So they're going to take, I had a meeting with them today, they're going to take Wanda Coleman's work and run it through 2015 sensibilities and energies and musicality. And then after that, there's going to be a panel where we're going to discuss, again, the state of the art. What is the state of art? State of poetry, literature, right? Of Black literature, relationship to media. Any and all subjects is all off the hook. But the hub or the beginning of it at 12 o'clock will be the screening. And it'll be the first time that it's screened in Leimert Park.
Yes.
So it will be kind of interesting because who knew?
And then also, too, just it's, the Vision Theater is kind of historic.
Very historic. So I'm honored. James Burke, who runs that theater, he was in Brazil at the time, and we had already come out with, the schizophrenic had come out with the documentary, and he contacted me from Brazil where he was at the time and said, Bob, because we go back, right? He says, Bob, you did this documentary on Wanda. Well, we have to do something for Wanda Coleman. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And he says, well, I don't know. He said, let's get together. We got together, and we kind of conceptualized this thing where to show the film and everything else that comes with it, because he knew that she needs to be put up. And my personal mission is that, not only will the certain libraries be named after Wanda, but also Sepulveda Boulevard will become the Wanda Coleman Boulevard, or Leimert Park Boulevard, whatever will become Wanda Coleman. My agenda is to make sure she gets the props that she needs to get, not only in the Black community, but in communities at large.
No, I think that's one thing that's really good about you. I really feel like you really, care about Wanda Coleman. I mean, this is, I know you've been working on this project for a very long time, and I know that you're very just dedicated to, getting her name out there, not, because obviously this project started before she passed and is on, well,
that's not quite true.
Yeah. Oh, it's not quite true. We mean it's not quite true.
Well, the facts are that the project didn't really jump off until after her death.
Yeah, but you'd already been talking about it, and you were
okay.
What do you mean, okay? How'd you get the footage? How'd that
Well,
happen?
the fact is, I know where you're coming
Yeah,
from, and
yeah.
I'm trying to make light of
Okay.
everything that I can. But I shot her years ago.
Yes, yes.
And I wanted to do something with and she was part of, again, 26 Poets, part
Yeah.
of this documentary.
Remember
This is
standing
the
on the
one.
mic. Yes.
This
standing
is
on
the
mic.
one.
Yes, yes, yes.
And
Yes.
she was one of the poets there.
Yes.
And then when she passed, and I didn't get a chance to do anything else with it.
Yeah.
You know, I decided I got to do something. So that's when I decided, right after her death, to do a documentary about her, because there was a memorial coming up in January. So I had 2 months to cull it together.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but you were a poet at one point. I
I'm
know
a poet and don't know it.
You're a poet. You don't know. You had a Blacker Tomorrow. Is that one of you had
You've
your
been
chapbook?
doing your research.
No, I'm just
impressed.
saying.
I'm impressed.
So you know, because you keep saying you don't know anybody in the poetry.
I don't.
But you just had it by yourself, or when were you reading anywhere? You had a chapbook. If you had a chapbook, you know. People just don't go, wow, I'm bored. I'm going to do a chapbook. That's kind of
It does happen because I had no idea. Actually, I was living in New York at the time, in Harlem, and I just came back from the war, Vietnam War, and I was in the middle of my nervous breakdown, and I needed to talk about what was on my mind at the time. So I was like this lonely brother walking in the shadows of isolation and confusion and obscure darkness that blinded him from the specter of a brighter day, whose pace is a drag of slow death, of no interest, of no hope. Face whose once youthful luster has now been replaced by black hairs of time and wrinkles, none are worse. Grooves of plowed ditches collecting decaying forms of lifeless bodies thrown into a mass, gravesite of stench, and eyes that stare hypnotically at the unbroken path of asphalt, eyes that occasionally look up to find themselves in the same sea of horrid human insanity. This is the look that he fears. Turns his head back down to the cold, unfeeling, yet friendly street of stone that envelops his being in a rapport of nothingness, to isolate his feelings of non-existence, to isolate himself from the shadows of a world that rejected and now terrorizes him. So that was my state of mind.
Oh, that was very good. I really like that.
It's the only poem I remember.
That's the only poem you remember.
It's the only poem I remember.
So you're like, oh yeah, I did some poetry, and you just recite this awesome poem. I'm not just saying that because I don't,
No.
I don't like everybody's poems.
Was that cool?
Yeah, it was good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you. I just made it up.
Yeah, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So, who are your poetry influences? Who are your artistic influences? Who inspires you, or do people inspire you, or just events, or the universe or something? Yeah.
Honestly, I seek the truth from within. So I'm always surprised when an idea or a thought or poem or anything comes to me. But I just spend a lot of time by myself, and it just comes to me. So the honest answer is there is no body. You know, I'm sure I assimilate a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's no body. I don't personify it with anybody. Say, oh, he or she. It just, my God. You know, my God. You know, is who inspires me. It's all original stuff. It all comes from OG.
So, I mean, who do you think will be the next Wanda Coleman? Do you think there'll be another Wanda Coleman?
No, I don't think there'll be a next Wanda Coleman because, Wanda lives.
Yeah.
But I know what you're asking me, okay? It's my job. There was a poet. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
There was a poet that I met today. She is a very bad lady. She has a voice, right? And I think that don't ask me what her name is because I just met her today and I don't record it. There's some young poets out there today that are working that are just incredible, just incredible. And so it's in good hands.
Yeah.
The voices are in Bridget Gray.
Yeah.
Okay, do you know Bridget Gray?
Yes, I do know.
Bridget Gray is an intense poet, honest poet. She's an older poet, older because she's not 21. She may be 26.
Yeah.
But Bridget Gray is a bad, bad lady as well. There's a lot of talent out there. So I'm not looking for the next Wanda Coleman.
Yes,
I'm just looking for a unique voice.
I think that's one, I really liked Wanda Coleman. I mean, I actually published one of her broadsheets. I have like original work that was never published.
Wow.
But by Wanda Coleman, and it really frustrates me a lot when I see so many people kind of like mimicking her style, and
It's an homage.
and they're awful.
Oh.
And I mean, I don't think they understand that she understood language, she understood metaphors.
Yeah.
It wasn't just confessional poetry.
No.
And I wish that, I think that I hope that her actual writing kind of gets out there with this documentary.
Well, that's why I did the documentary,
Yeah.
because I wanted people to see her personality, see her creativity, see her eclecticism, see what she was channeling, and understand that she wasn't just channeling Wanda.
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
channeling other entities, not that she had a multiple personality disorder or anything like that, but she was truly taking in consideration the universe. And it was like, what did she say? She says, I don't have to go out looking for material. Material comes in looking for me.
Well, she was political. She was making like points. She wasn't just, she was talking about a world larger than herself. And I think that's something that, we need more of, especially in the arts. We need people who are doing more than just, medicating themselves, which is
medicating themselves.
Yeah. I mean, and not
Wow.
saying that that part's not important, but the artistry is important too, and saying something beyond just yourself. But
Yeah.
I'm going off.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm going.
Well, let me ask you
tangent.
this. No.
We're gonna get ready to wrap this up, but
Wow.
what are your next projects going to be coming up? I mean, is there anything else that you're planning on doing? No.
Yes, of course. Are you
Okay.
kidding? I'm
Well,
working on
we're
3 projects right now, but I
Okay.
can't tell you anything about it. But I will tell you about one. One is involving an artist a visual artist, right? Who is probably the Michelangelo of his time, and he's of our time, and he's a young man. And then 2 other artists that I'm doing pieces on. I won't speak to it at all, but I will speak to this. I am going to be doing pieces on young contemporary artists working in multimedias, not just singular mediums, but it's going to be a collage, a smash, a mix of different kind of arts coming together.
Okay.
So that, don't trust me. I'm always working. Look, I live in a cave, and I come out to see you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming out of your cave to your cave in Hollywood, right?
See, you think I'm talking metaphors and stuff, but I'm telling the truth. ZZ Top up to this morning, then I cut it off just for you.
Okay. You cut everything
Just for you.
Okay.
It is the truth.
I have some jokes, but I'm not gonna make them.
Hit me with it.
No.
right.
I can't make jokes.
All right.
How can people get your movies? What's your website? Can you give us that?
My movies?
Yes, or
Okay.
documentaries. Am I saying it wrong?
No, it's just movies.
Okay, documentary,
films,
films.
whatever.
Oh,
I'm just
sorry.
making fun.
I don't think you are.
Okay. It's always digging. But they can contact me at Bryworld, BRYWORLD, at AOL.com. That's my email address. I'm on Facebook as well, Bob Bryan. But my website, which is kind of deep and dense and, you'll get lost in it, is ready? www.graffitiverite.com. That's GRAFFITIVERITE.com. That's graffitiverite.com. And you read all about it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for visiting the Black Girl Show, Bob. I really appreciated you coming here and learning about Wanda. We're learning more about Wanda, and we hope to have you back again to talk about your other projects.
As well, you should.
Yes, I
Thank
will.
you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
You're great.
So we're going to go on a break right now. But remember, you can always catch us on LA Talk Live, iTunes R&B, Live 365, Stitcher Radio, and the blackgirlshow.com website, as well as Ustream, where you can catch us live. So please come back, and when we come back from our break, we're going to be talking to Amy Roth Davis and from Surly Ceramics and Patheon. She's got a really cool project going on. So I'll talk to you soon.
people think little girls should be seen and not heard, but I think, oh, bondage, up yours! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Hello, we are back with the Black Girl Show. Up next, we're going to have Amy Davis Roth, and I don't know why I keep reversing her name. That's very bizarre. I'm going to actually read her bio. Amy Davis Roth, Surly Amy, is a multimedia artist who resides in Los Angeles, California. She makes Surly ceramics. That I don't know. Is the founder and president of the Los Angeles Women's Atheist and Agnostic Group, LA WAG. She's also the fearless leader of Mad Art Lab and co-host of Mad Art Cast. So, Amy, how are you?
I'm great. I'm also a psychic now.
Yes, you are. You're a psychic. You found my car keys.
In truth, I don't actually believe in psychics.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work talking about skepticism and using science-based information to find out what's true. But today, I did find Teka's keys in a very mysterious place and guessed that she drove what kind of car she drove.
And I was all freaking out. I was like, "What? How'd you know that?" I thought it was like, I'm like, "Yeah, that's I'm gonna wait. Before I go into that, I always ask like a cheesy question.
All right.
So, what is your favorite coffee shop?
Oh, man, my favorite coffee shop. That's so hard because I am such a coffee snob that I usually will only drink coffee out of a French press. Like, I'm pretty sure that most artists are fueled by caffeine.
Yeah.
So, coffee shop. I don't even go to coffee shops. And honestly, like, I buy coffee at Costco because it's more affordable to buy the gigantic bags that keep me going throughout the day. So I don't have a favorite coffee shop, but I'm open to suggestions. If anyone wants to tell me about fresh beans, see, I'm a snob. They have to be not burnt like Starbucks, and they have to be, I really like a good Sumatra.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to email me some suggestions on coffee.
That's actually a good idea. We should email. I love coffee, but sadly, I end up going to Starbucks a lot, and I really hate that.
Like it.
Yeah.
What do you think about the race thing that they're doing? It seems ridiculous that they can't even get your name right, but they're going to try to have, intelligent conversations about race.
I have to say about Starbucks and the race and I was annoyed, number one, when they started asking, do you want your croissant warmed up? I didn't want to have that conversation. Like, I was so annoyed with that conversation.
Well, you shouldn't be having conversations with people that haven't had their coffee yet.
No. And then that was just an interesting,
Did
horrible.
You want your croissant warmed up?
I didn't want to talk.
Yeah.
But you didn't have the option. What would happen was you would go, "Oh, can I? How about no? Oh, but you really want it warmed up, right?" I assume that's how the race conversation would go. Like, "Oh, how do you feel?" "No, I think you really want to talk about this." So, I mean, apparently this is like some kind of Starbucks thing where they like making people ask questions to people. So this is maybe it's a thing that they do, and instead of like doing the croissant, they decide to also go into race.
Yeah, I'm very confused by the whole project. Like, I want people to talk about privilege and race and things like that, but I don't want to have that conversation before I've had any caffeine.
Or when someone forces you to have the conversation.
Yeah, I don't want to be forced into that.
Yeah.
Not by a corporation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel kind of like that's inappropriate.
Yeah, it's a little inappropriate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, and it is. So we were actually talking about something else. I forgot. Oh, yeah, the whole skeptic.
I don't even know.
Oh, yeah. Because, you're
I'm part of the skeptic community. I write for a blog called skepchick.org. I've been involved with that blog for about, I'm going to say 7 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all about atheism, skepticism, and critical thinking directed at women.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that, like, women are usually the primary caregivers in a family, and so there's a lot of issues that are directed at women that are not necessarily true. And we help sort of spread the information that's reliable for women. So, for example, health claims like homeopathy, things that may not be science-based but are affecting decisions and affecting women financially. We try to explain those issues on the blog.
So, okay, this is great, because that's one thing that I've always kind of had a question about. Or not a question, but I've always kind of looked at people kind of like cross-eyed and be like, I'm not into, I'm not religious, but then they're like all new agey. I'm like, isn't that the same thing? Isn't that just some kind of like PC version of...
Yeah, it's just another version of spirituality.
Yeah, it's a version of not using, things that aren't real.
I understand it. I mean, life is confusing and it's really difficult, and there's a lot of things in life that are really hard, and so we look for things that we can believe in.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to scam people.
Yeah.
And we encourage women not to believe in the things that are going to affect them financially or affect their health negatively.
I love that you guys do that, because people never really focus on that. They always focus on the really typical, like, because we're in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. We don't really have too many like diehard Baptists going to church, but we do have a lot of new agey people who will be like, I have an infection. I think I'll just burn some incense.
Or detox, detox.
Just detox. I'm like, there's medicine for that. It's, I mean, I understand the whole, pharmacy and all that stuff, but, the whole measles shots and...
Oh, yeah. Vaccination, that's a really big issue that we focus on. We do a lot of free vaccine clinics for women also, because that is a big, huge misconception that you can get, say, autism from vaccines. Things like that are really untrue. And sadly, a lot of people believe it, and it's spread all over. And you've seen measles on the uptake. In fact, adults should get a booster shot. I think it's every 5 years for whooping cough and measels.
I mean, but that's...
don't realize it.
And people don't realize that you guys are talking about those kind of issues, that issues that are really impacting people in Los Angeles in a big way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I have a lot of friends who are like, I don't know if I want to,
No, you do want to get vaccinated because the people that end up dying from these diseases are the babies that are too young to be vaccinated, or the people that have immune disorders that can't get vaccinated. So we need to have what's called herd immunity. And so you need to have a wide segment of the population vaccinated so that we can protect the people that literally can't get vaccinated.
Yeah. Well, make sure you get close to the mic, just so we want to make sure that we can hear you.
All right.
But that's kind of like what you're kind of involved in. You kind of combine arts, creativity, and science in this weird way that's very like entertaining and informative. I mean,
Thanks.
you have like this project, Patreon.
Yeah, well, Patreon is not my project, and I'm here. I'm here to share with Teka what Patreon actually is, because I think that you would love it, and you should be a part of it. Patreon is actually a platform on the internet that has been created for creative people to have access to patrons. So historically, women, people of color, a lot of minority groups have sort of been excluded from the fine art community, excluded from things like broadcasting, because they didn't have access either to higher education or to money. And Patreon is this fantastic platform on the internet where you can set up your own account, and then you can find your own patrons. So for as little as $1... you can support someone that's doing something amazing like you and doing all these fantastic radio shows. You can support Teka for $1 for each either radio show you do or monthly. And so I've set up a Patreon for my project, which is I am creating art that is inspired by science.
Yeah, you have a necklace on right now.
I do, but I'm going bigger. Instead of just the necklaces, this project is about fine art, and it's about paintings, and I also do ceramics, but I want to do large form ceramic pieces. And what's special about my project is that I'm having each piece peer reviewed by an actual scientist. So it's weird. I'm really trying to do this intersection of art and science, and to do that I'm bringing in real scientists because I'm not that smart. And part of this is so inspiring to me because I get to learn something new all the time. Right?
Yeah,
and so I have access to all these fantastic scientists and science communicators because of my work with the blog Skepchick and because of my other project, Surly Ramics, which is the ceramic jewelry. I've met all these fantastic scientists. And so I've somehow conned them into helping me. And so I'll do a painting. And what started this project, actually, I wanted to do a painting of DNA. So I did this huge 4-foot by 5-foot painting, and I didn't understand at the time what base pairs were. So if you've ever seen a DNA strand, it's like this beautiful, swirling object that's like a ladder, and those little steps on the ladder are called base pairs. And there's nucleotide base pairing, and there can only be 4. All right. And I didn't know this. So I had painted this giant DNA strand that's like as big as this wall with like a rainbow of colors because I thought it looked pretty. And I was like, it's so great. I'm so smart. Look at me. But then I had some biologists and chemists that I knew come and tell me, hey, Amy, you kind of screwed that up. And I'm like, I did? What do you mean I did? And they explained to me that you can only have 4 colors and that those 4 colors will always match up. So say you have red and pink and blue and blue and green will always pair up, and red and pink will always pair up. So I had to go back in. I didn't have to, but I did, and that's what it inspired this new project. So I went back in, and I fixed the painting so that the nucleotide base pairings matched up, and I had a painting then that was beautiful and educational and something that I could feel like I was proud of. And that's what inspired this whole Patreon project that I'm doing now.
You know what's so bizarre? Because you already told me this, but I was like, oh, so where did you go to school? And you study something. You didn't go to school to study. Well, I mean, I'm not saying you went to school at some point.
Well, I had started working when I was 15. I didn't really have a lot of money. I had my own apartment at age 17. So I needed money more than I thought I needed in education at the time. So I did go to college, but I only took art classes. I only graduated with like one of those occupational certificates in graphic design because my whole goal was like I need to support myself. So unfortunately, I didn't get to go to like a big college, and I certainly didn't take any science classes. But I found myself really fascinated by the sciences later in life. And I just had this like epiphany one moment while I was a cocktail waitress that I was going to learn about physics. And so I started researching physics, and I started looking into it on the internet, and I found this fantastic, really welcoming environment and world and community online that had to do with skepticism and science, and that's how I got involved, and that's how I've learned everything, and that's why I'm doing this art project, because I want to share that knowledge with other people like me that maybe didn't get a chance to have a college education or didn't get to learn about science. I want to get them into it.
So bizarre because I think you didn't go to college. You explain stuff in a way that's really simple, like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. I mean, I think that it's kind of like it's more like instead of having this, so I don't know how you can make science informal, but you kind of are able to kind of bridge that. I could see you totally like teaching like a little kindergarten class and explaining this to them, and then it would kind of get it. I mean, it makes it interesting, which is a lot of people in science aren't able to do that.
Yeah, I have way too foul of a mouth to ever teach kindergarten, but I appreciate that. But that's one of the goals of the blog that I write for, Skepchick, where we really do try to make science accessible to the everyday person. And the same thing with Mad Art Lab, which is the other site that I'm a part of, which is about the intersection of art and science. It's literally the goal to make art, make science more accessible to everyday people so that people like me. I like to think of myself 10 years ago when I didn't know anything, when I believed in ghosts, I believed in psychics, I believed in everything. I took homeopathy for my allergies. I was doing all of these things that were just, in retrospect, things that didn't really make any sense. But I understand why people do those things, and I want to reach that community.
Well, I think people, they do these things probably because it's like they have nowhere else to go.
Yeah,
and
our
they have
healthcare system is so ridiculous and awful, and I completely understand why people turn to alternative medicine,
because they want things to work, and not, but necessarily, I mean, that's one thing that's really challenging. I mean, how, in regards to your necklaces and all that kind of stuff.
I brought you some. I don't know if people can see this or anything.
Yeah, they can. Let me show the shiny thing. Oh, these are cool. But that's another thing too. You're able to kind of like make what you do commercial, so that you can support yourself.
I've had to, though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, I always tell people, like, young artists that I meet, you need a business degree.
Yeah.
Because that's what they aren't teaching in art school. They aren't telling you that you're going to be broke ass your entire life unless you figure out a way to monetize what you do.
And also, too, I mean, I know, and it's funny because I talked to you before on another program, but, why do you think that women need a separate atheist organization outside of the traditional? Yes.
Because, well, for one thing, the women that write for the blog Skeptic have been the target of an online harassment campaign that's been going on for like 3 years now. So we routinely get death threats, we get hate mail, we get rape threats, we are constantly being stalked and harassed. And so I felt that it was necessary to create a safe space for women that have seen what's been happening to women like me, and there's a woman, Rebecca Watson, and a lot of people may be familiar with what's happening in Gamergate.
Yes.
The same thing was happening in the atheist community just prior to that becoming mainstream. And so a lot of women in the atheist community are afraid to go to events because they don't want to be targeted, or they don't want to be treated like a sexualized object. They want to go somewhere where they can learn and be in a safe space. And so I started the Los Angeles Women's Atheist and Agnostic Group just to create a nice, happy, friendly community for women where they could get together each month and, talk about whatever. We don't have to talk about religion. In fact, the next meetup that we're doing is going to be about social justice and pop music. So we have a woman named Courtney Caldwell who's coming from Texas, and she's going to talk about how, Beyonce is an awesome feminist. Things like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think that's one of the things that's good about you, because you're making things accessible to people, and you're making it kind of like, oh, I would go, because I mean, even sometimes with atheist things, you're just kind of like, that really seems boring.
Yeah.
I really want to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
but you're able to.
It is boring.
Yeah. So, but I mean that, you're a little bit different. You're able to kind of like bridge. I think because you're so excited about the fact that how it's connecting science but also, too, you're kind of like an activist in regards to, women and feminism and in the atheist community, which is an important. I mean, you really have kind of taken off. I mean, because you just started that group, and you had an art show about the threats that you guys received.
Yeah, we did this art show called A Woman's Room Online, where we followed about 6 high-profile women in the secular community, and we documented all the hate mail they got, all the rape threats that they got, and we built it was a 8-foot by 10-foot office space, and we completely covered the walls and all the objects and everything in the room with the hate mail that they got. And there was so much hate mail that I was printing it out right up until the day of the opening. And there was still more coming in, and these women are still targeted today. So it was it's horrific, but it was a very empowering show to do, because a lot of people don't believe us when we say that we get targeted online and that we get threatened and that we have stalkers. They say things like, just, walk away, just leave the internet. You don't need to be there then. But I have a business online. SurlyRamix.com is my business. It's online. I have to be there online to check emails, and I have every right to be there.
And her stuff's really cute.
And so this art exhibit sort of gave us an opportunity to say, look, this is real, and this is what it's like for these women who work in online spaces every single day. So you walked into this room, and it was really oppressive and filled with hate, and everywhere you looked in the room, including a computer and the chairs and the desk, and everything was covered with these hate messages that are still coming in to this day.
And why do you think, in the atheist community, which is supposed to be science-based, which is supposed to be about, logic, why would they be sexist? Which is, to me, that just boggles my mind, because I've seen it, even like, I've gone to like meetings, or people of color skeptic meetings, and I've seen like this kind of like this weird sexist tint that goes like line that goes through it. Like, they're talking about like moms, like, well, women need to just get married.
Yeah, it's weird. I had that same sort of feeling when we first started receiving this, hate mail and the threats and all of that. It started because we were so involved in, getting women more involved in the atheist community. So we asked ourselves a lot of questions, like, what can we do to get more women involved? So we would go to conferences and we'd look around the room and we'd see that there weren't that many women there.
Yeah.
And so we started asking the women that were there what their experiences were like. And people started reporting that they were experiencing a lot of, sexual harassment and that they were getting, it was like a meat market, basically, at conferences. And a lot of women felt uncomfortable because they were going there because they wanted to learn from the biologists and from the speakers. They weren't going there to hook up, but a lot of the men that were there saw them as just an opportunity. And so we started suggesting that there be harassment policies at conferences. And that's literally when everything exploded, because people said we were trying to ruin fun, and that, like you mentioned earlier, atheists and skeptics are supposed to be so much smarter than the rest of the population, right? Or that's the assumption anyway. It certainly isn't true. What I've learned now is that atheists, skeptics, non-believers, free thinkers, humanists, all those people are just like everyone else.
Or gamers, computer people, comics, because I go to a lot of these conventions, and I think the thing is almost because we're smart, because we view ourselves as smarter than everybody else.
We don't think we can have flaws.
We have the privilege to do whatever we want to
Right.
do. It's almost like
Yeah.
it's bizarre. It's almost like it's worse because
it is worse. A lot of people get involved in the skeptic community, or they come to this realization that they don't need God in their life for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they do think that they are smarter. They literally have this moment. And I think we're all guilty of it. I know
Yeah.
that when I was younger, I'm like, I'm so smart. I figured out homeopathy and I understand vaccinations. And oh, look at me. I'm such a genius. But really, I'm not any smarter than the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But some people have a hard time letting that go. And so they get stuck on these ideas. And so they refuse to allow themselves to be wrong, which I think is one of the most important aspects of skepticism and critical thinking is, having the ability to say, I made a mistake. I was wrong about that. I would like to learn from this experience and move on. And I'm hoping that, the online community and the atheist community is going to, at some point, realize that they've made a mistake in the way that they're treating the women in their community.
Well, even with your project with the whole four baseline, you said with baseline,
Base
being,
press?
yeah, base press. Honestly, I don't even know what it's called. And that's the thing that's so funny. My friends who didn't go to school seem to know more, remember more than I remember. Like, I don't even know.
I think it's because we feel like we missed out. Like, I have a hunger for learning still.
Yeah.
And I'm middle-aged now, but I am still like, I want to learn stuff. I love learning.
But you being able to say, hey, I didn't do this right. Like, a lot of times people are like, very like, oh, you don't like my art. Screw you. It's not about that. It's about, but you wanting to get it right. And that's how we should all be. I mean, if you're a skeptic, and not just if you're skeptic, just anybody, you should want to get things right if you can.
See how smart you are, because you have figured out the subtext in this whole Patreon art project that I'm doing, and it's exactly that. It's that I'm willing to learn.
Yeah. So, how can people support you?
Well, you can go to patreon.com/SurlyAmy. That's SURLY.
I'll put that
AMY.
Okay.
And you can find me there. You can find me at surlyramix.com. That's where you can see my jewelry.
Yeah.
And I'm on Twitter at SurlyAmy.
And is that bow thing, the thing on your head? Did you make that or no?
The thing in my head? No. This is representing my absolute love of Frida Kahlo.
Okay. I was like wondering. I'm like, did she make that too?
I wear flowers in my hair in honor of her. She's my favorite artist of all time.
This is everybody's favorite artist.
I know. I feel like it's super trendy and terrible, but I just absolutely adore her and everything that she did.
Well, it's kind of like me when people go, who's your favorite poet? And like in real life, my favorite poet is like Dorothy Parker. And I hate saying that because that sounds like such a cliche to be like, oh, I really like Dorothy Parker. I need to say somebody more like, more dark or something.
I just need to start making things up. My favorite artist is Sam.
Yes.
And people will be like, who's that? And I'll be like,
He's from,
you don't know?
He's from Sweden. You don't know who he is.
Yeah.
You obviously don't know. You're not cool. You don't know. And how can we follow you on Twitter? Because I know you're on Twitter.
Yeah,
and
I'm Surly Amy on Twitter.
Yeah, you have like 1,000 followers. Not 1,000. You have like 1 million followers. Now, like, like a long time ago, like, oh, you have 1,000 followers.
Don't listen to Teka. I have 4 followers. It's my mom, my dad, and 2 of my cousins. No one listens to me.
Yeah. So we really appreciated you coming here. I'm like saying we, but I mean, it is kind of we because we have Van, who's an engineer, and myself, and so.
And you need to get on Patreon. You set yourself up an account so we can support you too, because you are fantastic.
I thought that was some kind of science thing.
Yeah.
When you said Patreon, I'm like, is that some
Patreon.com. Yeah. Think of Patron of the Arts.
Yeah,
it's a play on that. Yeah.
Obviously, yes, but at the time I was thinking, but you see how I've gotten so tired to the point where I'm just like, I'm not gonna even play it off. I'm like, no, I have no idea what that is. I was thinking like maybe it's some kind of science thing that I don't know, some kind of part of your DNA.
If I tell you, I have to kill you.
Yeah. Patreon. I was like, oh yeah, I do. I need a new way to make money. A new way to make money. Not the old way of getting a patron. No.
That's too hard. Like, who has rich friends? Like, that's impossible. But if you are rich and you are listening,
if you are rich and listening,
Patreon.com/Surly Amy.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that was the Black Girl Show. Oh, also on April 11th, we're doing the Zora live reading where we're going to read Zora Neale Hurston for 12 hours. But keep in mind, for audience, it's only from 7 to 10. You don't have to actually sit there for 12 hours and watch us read. Their eyes are watching God. That's not going to happen. It's going to be us reading it, live streaming it. And then from 7 to 10, we're going to do like a recap of the Black Girl Book Fair with like pictures. And we're going to have food and drinks, and we're going to have all kind of cool stuff and conversation. So it's going to be kind of like a party. It's my way. It's me and Skyra's way of having an actual party between 7 and 10. But we have to have a reason to have the party. So we're having the Zora Neale Hurston live. So please come out and support. We promise you it will be fun and lots of talking and lots of food and lots of alcohol and other stuff. All right. Just kidding. All right. So this is Teka Lark-Fleming, and I will see you guys next Saturday. And our show will be moving to 90 minutes. So we're going to have some panel discussions. So we're going to have so like I said, iTunes R&B. I forgot like where you could see us. iTunes R&B, Live 365, Stitcher, Tiny Chat. I don't know. You can go to my hashtag Black Girl. See, I have my little sign now, so I don't have to actually say it, which is like even more challenging than you like spelling out Surly Ramex.
Is it referencing the Riot Grrrl movement?
Yes, it is. It's I'm very, that was kind of like my whole thing,
That's awesome.
For a while. And then the Black Power is supposed to be like radical Black person. So I was like, you don't have to feel alone. You're not radical by yourself. Because I always say the South LA is like super oppressive. Anyway, I should like. All right. Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Moonshine, the baby king and Jimmy.